Hey everybody, it's Jackie with Jackie's Wreaths and Things. For some time now, I've been asked to show people how I would do a garland using one of these bases. So that's what we're going to do today, except for I'm going to shorten it down so you can see what I'm going to do. This garland is actually going to go above on my cabinets. So literally what I'm going to do is, because this is we're going to call this the El Cheapo garland base from Walmart. It was $3. And instead of running around buying all kinds of different ones, I chose to just get this one. And the top of my, this is 9 foot. The top of my cabinet is approximately 5 feet. So I'm just going to double this over. And what I'm going to do to double this over, I'm just going to fold it in half. And I'm going to tie these together using the evergreen pieces. And I'm going to start at the bottom and do it every so often. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, this feels like it needs some lotion. It's very dry. But the thing is, it's going above my cabinets, so I don't want it to be very big, because I don't want it slammed in the cabinet. I don't want it hanging over the cabinet, and above my cabinet, I only have 12 inches to work with. And sometimes when people ask you to do these for their fireplace mantles, they don't have much to work with in size either. So with some garlands, and when you use these, it's kind of hard to get all big and poofy, because you actually end up having limited space. So you've got to think more going up than going out. So I'm probably tying this about every, I'd say, 5 inches. And as you can see, I'm kind of fluffing it a little bit as I go. Now, like I said, because it can't be very foo-foo, fluffy, I have restriction, and this is actually perfect. So I didn't have to go out and spend a fortune on trying to find a luxurious garland. So because I don't have much space, I'm not going to add any mesh or anything like that. You got to think about those things. Sometimes you have to design in a less is more. But as I'm tying this together, it's kind of flattening it out too. And that's what I want, because I want it to sit flat on my cabinet on the top of my cabinets when I set it up there. So basically with something like this, because I don't have much space, and you may not be working with much space when it comes to somebody's mantle, and you're going to have to think less is more, and you're going to have to think about height and little space. Well, next thing you got to figure out, well, how do I make it look over the top? So with making it look over the top, it's going to come into your selection more of your picks and goodies that you will use. So I basically wanted this to flatten out as I went, and as we tied it together, it actually strengthened it, and it's laying straight. So the next thing we want to do is we want to find the middle of this. One of the easiest things that I suggest do is either one, if you're not going to put a bow on immediately, which we're not, grab a pipe cleaner and just fold that bad boy in half. Make sure it's half and mark it. That way you know exactly where the center is. And I'm not tying this in here tight. I'm just tying it to mark as a reference point for adding my goodies, because with what I'm going to do, I want to go left to right with what I'm going to add. So the first thing I'm going to add is I found these very large floral picks at my local Trees and Trends. And I'm going to lift them up. Once again, remember I was just telling you we were talking about height. I'm going to have to kind of go up with my height because I can't go out. Once again, I don't want it hanging over my kitchen cabinets. So that's like basically the same thing that you would need to think about if you were designing on an ultra small mantle. Now at this point, you can either cut this stem off or you can tie it in. I'm going to tie it in. The reason that I'm going to tie this stem in is this is going to give it added support and help it stay straight on my cabinet. And because I'm going to tie it in, I'm going to start down here at the tip. And I'm going to raise my limbs up, So as you can see, I've picked some pretty large pick. So once again, I'm going to grab another one. Going to raise these up. That way they're not in the way. And then I'm going to decide this is about center. So I'm good to go to just go ahead and lay this in here. And I'm just going to be careful and not grab my pipe cleaner because we're not ready to get rid of it just yet. And I'm going to start tying this in again. So I'm using this pick for a couple reasons. One, it's large, creates a big statement. And two, it's giving me the rigidity. So this will sit nicely on the top of my kitchen cabinet. Now the reason I chose to use just because a little small evergreen garland, I wanted that hint of green to go with my decor. So we're going to go fluffing again, kind of pull these pieces up. I'm trying to stagger them around. Like so. Now we're going to come down the other way. Once again, raise these up. And start tying it in. So when you start bending your elements, really think about how they're going to be viewed. That's why I'm kind of bending my leaves down. And then we're going to add one last pick in. And this one I am going to cut off because we don't need that length. And we do have enough to hold this stable now on my cabinet. So this will make it easy for me to transport. Now, if you're actually going to ship something like this, you can't do this because you're going to have to be able to bend it around the box. So you'll actually have to cut your pick apart if you're planning on shipping this. I typically don't recommend shipping items like these. It's kind of like, they're pretty difficult to ship. So if you do, you gotta like snake it around the box and really secure it down so it gets there in one piece. So notice I'm kind of every other, so I don't have a bunch of black. Kind of weaving my elements around. Now, because this is so thick right here at the center, I am going to grab a zip tie. And I'm going to go ahead and remove my pipe cleaner now that I'm going to use a zip tie because that's going to mark my center. So from my cabinet, it's going to look something like that. So knowing that, I want to pull some of these down. I don't want them too far down, but I want them to show. I still want them to have life though. So I'm just going to kind of bend the leaf just a little bit. These in the back, I might tilt up a little bit because that's how it's going to look on my cabinet. So I got to think about that I want it to show. And bend it up. You would do the same thing if you're doing like a fireplace mantle. You want to make sure your elements show, they're not up in the air. Without a purpose. Okay, so now what I want to do is, this is a ribbon that I have incorporated into all my other decor. Now this is not identical. The other one that I used was a snowdrift, but the good news is this is far enough apart, you're not really going to notice that they're similar. So we're going to incorporate this ribbon, and then the other ribbon that I have used in my decor is the black one. But predominantly we're going to use this red one because we have so much black. So in the center here, and I'm going to go kind of sparing because I want to put a couple of bows. We're just going to whip some hand bows. And once again, here's the worst part. We can't have that much tail. So realistically, I don't want my tail hanging out any further than past my garland. Like I said, it's going to go up on my countertop. So I can have height, but I can't have width. So just as I've done with everything else when dealing with evergreen, I'm just going to tie the bow in using my evergreen tips. So I'm going to cut my tail shorter than I have been. So I'm trying to pull this ribbon down. Like I said, it's going to be up. So I'm more concerned about how my ribbon is facing to be seen. So you always want to tilt your project up and see. So I kind of want to twist this loop around so it's seen a little bit better. So since it's got so much black, I'm just going to add a couple of the red bows instead. To break up some of the color. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look and see where there's kind of a good gap between my elements and insert that's a little bit too long. And I'm going to leave that facing the side so that the loop shows out to the side. Match my loop up. Once again, find a good space, evenly spaced out. And I'm just going to tie it right in there. That's one of the good things about evergreen bases is that you're not having to fumble so much to find pipe cleaners, things like that to secure a bow. You can just use the ties and tie it right in. So you notice I'm kind of accidentally smashing my holly. So we got to fluff it back. That's okay. So there still isn't that much red, so we're going to add 2 more bows with the red, and we're going to do that at the end. I always bring my piece back to center when I'm working on it. And I've said this once, I'll say it again, so that I know exactly where I need to put something else. If you look at your project off center, you are not looking at it the correct way. You can't look at your project off center and know where you need to add your elements. It just isn't possible, folks. I personally think that it's also very hard to design if you don't put your elements exactly where you're wanting them as you go. I don't believe in a fluff later kind of thing. Make now, fluff later. So that is why as you see me, I'm doing everything, and it seems like 100 times as I go, fluffing this, because I'm putting it back the way I wanted it, so I know what I'm designing. So now we still need some little extra pops of color. So I have these little picks that I truly love. They put like a little punch of color when you need it most, a little pep and pizzazz without adding how do I say, they're inexpensive, so they don't break your budget, basically. Sorry about that. I didn't have room on my work table to set them and work. So these picks came from Sims Pottery. My table centerpiece, we had added just a little bit of green. So that's why I'm going to use it again now. Oh, I hate these tags. To kind of give it a little punch and color. So I'm going to kind of bend the pick a little bit. And with this pick, the bigger holly berry is our height. So we're going to sneak in and under. And I'm just going to add these to the front. Once again, this is our focal side. So I don't need them on the back in this case. Everything is focusing up front. I was going to hot glue them in, but I think we'll just tie them in. And that'll help hide the pick itself anyway too. So because I tied it in, we're going to bend that up. Nope, I'm going to hot glue this in. That sat too low. We're going to hot glue this in. That sat down too low. And as I'm going, I'm going to bend some of these evergreen tips up to cover some of the brown. No telling how long my glue gun's been off, y'all. Okay, so while that heats up, we'll set those aside for 2 seconds. Y'all, I'm serious. Do not buy an auto shut-off glue gun. You will end up being as mad as I am every time you go to use it, and you have to wait for it to heat back up. It's not worth it. So the other reason I chose this one is because above my cabinet, I didn't want the flocked beating onto my cabinets either. I'm going to trade these around. There we go. That's better. That has a better flow to it. Fix my stragglers while I'm waiting for the stupid glue gun to heat up. Sorry, y'all. Y'all are sitting there going, Jackie, get on with it. I'd like to. I'd like to. Don't get one, y'all. Do not. This is not on Jackie's list of recommended purchases at all. Not even close, y'all. That is the most disappointing thing. I need to just go ahead and replace it. That is on my list of most disappointing purchases ever. So anyway, the good thing about doing these two is that you work in even numbers with everything except for your bows. So notice I used 5 bows, but I used 2 picks over here, 2 picks over here. I'm going to use 6 of these total, but I'm going to use 3 over here, 3 over here. So when you're working with garlands and you're doing the left to right, you can work in even numbers. I can't even begin to tell y'all, I do not recommend Sure Bonder. I've had several glue guns, and I've never had one take this long to heat up. This falls under the category of biggest disappointing product ever. So anyway, so this was a pretty good spot right here. So I'm going to kind of bend that down. Notice if I have to bend my leaf, I'm going to bend it. I'm going to put stuff where I want it and where I need it to be for my design. So basically, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put one of these between each bow. And like I said, we're doing that to give it color. To break up some of the humdrum of just the black. One thing is, because it's going above my cabinets, even if it's in a mantle, I'm trying to make sure that my pieces are raised up so they won't interfere with the opening and closing of my cabinets. So those are the kind of things that you're just going to have to be aware of when you're dealing with making garlands. There's a lot of questions that you need to ask. You need to ask how wide the mantle is. Is it gas operated? Is it vented? So that you know what you're working with for your design. You need to know the dimensions, how high they want it to be. Some people may not want their garland to be that high. They may want it to be at low hanging. Some people don't like over the top. You have to ask a lot of questions. I would recommend for those of you that do make garlands that you make up a questionnaire that they fill out and send back to you, so that you have their response not just in chat, but in writing, so you don't make any mistakes. So if they sit there and they say, well, you should have done it this way, you like, this is what you told me, so this is what I did. So now we've got little pops of green in. So I'm going to tilt this up so y'all can see. Basically, this is what it's going to look like above my kitchen cabinet. Looking up. So you have to really think about this. You're going to have to basically tilt your work at, sometimes come eye level. You're really going to have to get in there and see where your pieces are laying. This is kind of like one of the reasons I'm not the biggest fan of shipping these. I'm really not, because once it gets to your customer, it may not end up even being close to the same. But this is what I recommend doing for a garland, especially if you're going to ship it. Y'all, to keep them affordable, if you want to do a lot of these, you can't put a lot of money into them. You can't put a lot of zhuzh into them. So find some, you know, big statement pieces and have fun with it. But this is basically how I would do a garland in anybody's home, because it's kind of hard to see how good this looks. But basically, I used big pieces and really got a lot of impact and punch for my money. A lot of height, a lot of depth. If you wanted to, like, I already know that I'm going to put some other stuff to go with this on my cabinet. So if I wasn't, I would add probably some ornaments. Probably just white. I'll show y'all how that looks. Actually, I think we will go ahead and add white. Just give it another punch of color and tone a little bit more of that black down. And then this is a mistletoe pick. Just maybe if I use a mistletoe pick, it's above the cabinets, I'll get lots of kisses from the mister. What do y'all think? Maybe? Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this off. This is a really long stem. Don't need it that long at all. And I am actually going to lay this up in between these to tone some of this black down and put some pop of white. And the reason I'm going up, once again, I've got 12 inches above my cabinets that I can work with. And this definitely needs a little bit of color, y'all. Coming up out of it. If you go to hot glue something in and it starts to move, y'all, just wait till it's done cooling. And because it's wired, come back and bend it back the way you want. But don't keep messing with it while it's cooling, because otherwise you're like thinning the glue out where you're at. Okay, I like the little pops of white coming up now. I'm glad y'all made me do this. because that definitely helped tone down a lot of that black. I'm going to bend this around in front. As well. There we go. Notice I'm bending it back. I'm going to get so I'm kind of bending those down to follow the shape of my garland. And I'm going to get 2 more. So I'm going to come down here at the end, at the bottom, or the front actually, bottom front, and I'm going to come all the way down here. I'm going to bend it back to go with the shape of the garland. And then I'm going to do it one more time. And I didn't pay much for any of these picks. I do not recommend, unless you're going to be able to charge a minimum of $75 a foot. I do not recommend putting that much money into the floral picks that you use for these kind of things. At all. All right, y'all. So that's basically it. So I'm going to tilt it up so you can see. It's nice. It's simple. I'll pull it up to the camera. Maybe you can get a good view there. But it's nice and simple, and it's really going to go well and accent my kitchen decor. And I've got 3 more of these to make to go above my kitchen cabinets. Thank y'all so much for joining me. Bye, y'all.